Hello and welcome to another edition of the Bastard Review. This time around I'm looking at NWA's Halloween Havoc 89. This event took place October 28th, 1989 in the Philadelphia Civic Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Our first match of the night is Mike Rotunda facing the Z-Man, Tom Zenk, which turns out to be relatively bland and fails to excite me, which is what an opening match should do. I'm also unimpressed at how little occurs despite being given a decent amount of time, clocking in a little over 13 minutes. This might have worked as a come-down second match. I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. After that, the Midnight Express of Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane team up with Steve Williams to take on the Samoan SWAT team Fatu and Samu and the Samoan Savage, who you might recognize as the Tongan Kid or one half of the Islanders. What a chaotic match this turns out to be, which makes sense considering who the participants are. This would have served as a better opener. The Samoans start off strong but blatantly interfere the whole time with little consequence from the referee. If I had one gripe, it's that Steve Williams deserves better than this. Why isn't he vying for the US title, or at least for the TV title? It's an absolute crime that whoever is booking can't find a way to give Steve a bigger relevant spotlight. An entertaining match though, I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. Up next, the Cuban Assassin takes on Tommy Rich. Yep, the same Tommy Rich from ECW's Full-Blooded Italians. It's amusing to hear the crowd chant, "Tommy Rich sucks!" and just totally crap on this match. At one point, Tommy nearly botches a sunset flip, and I have to wonder how this got booked on the pay-per-view, let alone given 8 minutes. I'm giving this a 3 out of 10. The Freebirds Jimmy Garvin and Michael Hayes defend their NWA World Tag Team titles against the Dynamic Dudes Johnny Ace and Shane Douglas, and I have to wonder who looks goofier. I realize it's the tail end of the 80s, but damn, these teams are just too goofy looking. Again, most of the crowd just crap on the dudes who are supposed to be the faces, which I find hilarious. They continuously chant DDT, but when Hayes goes for one, Johnny counters it, which is unwise and only causes the audience to boo louder. This match doesn't really work for me. It feels like neither team complement each other very well, and they fail to convince me the dudes even stand a chance of winning. Not good, but I'll be charitable and give it a 5 out of 10. After that, Rick and Scott Steiner take on the masked opponents of Doom, who are actually Ron Simmons and Butch Reed. The story going into this is that Rick's on-screen girlfriend of sorts, Robin Green, who you might recognize as then wife of Kevin Sullivan, Nancy, turned on Rick for reasons unknown and brought in Doom to attack the Steiner brothers. From there, this match culminates. It has all the usual suspects. Doom frequently cheats, the face gets beaten down when his teammate tries to come to his aid, and the partner gets a blind tag that the ref doesn't see or allow. Scott does a nice flying clothesline onto Ron and then gives one of them a great standing Hurricane Rana, but you can barely see it due to the camera angle. The end sees Doom gain the victory by use of a foreign object, so obviously the feud isn't over, which I'm fine with, I suppose. I'd rather see the Steiner brothers vying for the tag titles, or at least facing a higher ranking team like the Road Warriors. It's a by-the-numbers match with a flawed but passable storyline, but I'll be charitable again and give it a 6 out of 10. Up next, Lex Luger defends his NWA US Heavyweight title against Flying Brian Pillman in a decent title match. Brian gets a few chances to go high risk, sometimes paying off, and really holds his own impressively against Lex. Unfortunately, there's really little build-up. Lex sent out a challenge and Brian accepted it, and the end is pretty weak too. Lex whips Brian into the ropes. Brian goes for what looks like to be the setup of a diving crossbody, but Lex grabs him and falls backwards, dumping Brian on the top rope before going for the pin. And it's over like that. Given close to 17 minutes, that's a really lackluster way to end what could have been a solid match, but it's still pretty good. I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. Then the Road Warriors, Animal and Hawk take on the Skyscrapers Dan Spivey and Sid Vicious. 40 seconds in and Dan Botch is going backwards over the top ropes on a clothesline, but thankfully he's decent for the rest of the match. Dan does a nice delayed vertical suplex, though it would have been more impressive if he held it for longer than 5 seconds. Hawk and Animal do a great job of selling and proving that their opponents are on the same level, even if I don't completely buy into it. Sid takes a more active role in this match, but he still fails to convince me he's anything more than a really tall, muscular man. The end is absolutely stupid. Teddy Long throws Dan a giant metal key he's been carrying during the match to use on Hawk and cause a disqualification. Sure, it's the start of the feud, but this is something you see on TV, not on a pay-per-view that people have to pay for. I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. On a side note, during the match in the audience, I see 2 guys dressed in tie-dye shirts, overalls, and glasses. I wonder who they were for Halloween. I hadn't realized the Dudleys were around at this time. Finally, we come to the main event. Ric Flair and Sting face Terry Funk and the Great Muta in a Thunderdome match. In layman terms, this is an electrified steel cage match where the only way to win is for your opponent's Terminator to throw in the towel they're carrying. For this match, Ole Anderson represented Flair and Sting, while Gary Hart represented Funk and Muta. Bruno Sammartino served as guest referee, which begs the question, why is there a ref at all if there are no real rules? Why is he there to officiate? As well, electrifying the fence is a silly stipulation, especially when it's just the top portion. You can't win by escaping, so what's the point? This match suffers from just too much convolution. I imagine the cage was tacked on to take advantage of the Halloween type theme, but honestly, it's unneeded. Just give me a great tag team match and leave the hokey stipulations for other companies. The best part was when Flair had Funk in a figure 4 leg lock and Sting comes down on Funk with 2 frog splashes while Muta is recovering outside the ring. Otherwise, it's pretty average, though somewhat entertaining. The end sees Ole attack Gary, causing him to inadvertently throw the towel at Bruno, thus ending the match. I've seen worse endings, but I've definitely seen a lot better. I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. Overall, this show is all over the place, and few of the destinations are where you want to be. Most of it is barely above average, though there are a few matches with squandered potential. Just very disappointing. I'm giving Halloween Havoc a 5 out of 10. Thank you for listening. Please tune in again when I review another wrestling DVD in my collection, or anything else that crosses my path.